All right, it is time for your stimulus update on this Thursday, July 30th. And boy, do we have a lot of news to get to. I want to start this hour, though, with the Federal Reserve, because I think this sets the tone for what Congress should be doing. And they're not. They've been a total failure. Federal Reserve Chief Jerome Powell, of course, yesterday doing their up-to-date minutes on what they are planning for the forecast of this economy. And it was a gloomy picture that Fed Chief Jerome Powell painted. He's saying that all of these coronavirus cases are weighing down the economy, and it is starting to show and take its toll. So again, I think Jerome Powell has been stellar throughout all of this. I think he has been really the one true leader. Unfortunately, he answers to Congress, and they are not allowed really to tell Congress what to do, though he has about 4 times now. And again, yesterday. He yesterday said he called on Congress to get another stimulus passed because we need it right now. He said interest rates will continue to stay low. That means mortgage rates will remain low for years to come. So if you think about buying a house or selling your house right now, this is the time to put some, think about refinancing your home, getting a home equity line of credit, whatever. But this is the perfect time to lock in those interest rates on a new mortgage. They have been pumping money into the economy on the liquidity side for banks, keeping that side of the economy burning and churning. Wall Street doing just fine, continuing to say we're going to continue to pump more money into the economy nonstop. They're not stopping. And then they turned to Congress and said, please, we need more money in this economy, and they need to pass something similar to what we saw back in March of this year. A new stimulus plan that looks like we had in March, get some money in the economy. He did not name a number. Of course, he did not lay out how much. So that's up to Congress to figure out. He said it multiple times. So it did finish up their meeting with the central bank. They continue to pledge to keep interest rates near zero as long as necessary to help the flailing economy. Many economists think that these interest rates will remain near zero through 2024 and beyond. That's a long time, folks. 4 or 5 years of interest rates near zero, which is once again why you should not have your money tied to U.S. currency. You should have your money inside of real estate, gold, silver, or even cryptocurrency, outside of this corrupt government banking system where they can just print as much money as they want and they can pump money into the banking system as much as they want. And yet we're still struggling as Americans because they're not lifting us up and pumping money into our side of things right now. So that was Fed Chief Jerome Powell yesterday speaking. And I think that sets the tone for where we need to be. Now, will the toddlers in the room start listening to the grown-ups in the room and actually pass something? I don't know. It doesn't look likely right now. The Republicans are at loggerheads. They're fighting back and forth with Democrats right now. But Republicans don't even have an agreement within their own caucus, and yet they want to point the fingers at Democrats? By the way, I'm not defending either side of this, and I'm not defending Democrats, but I'm certainly not defending Republicans. They've been a mess. But Democrats passed a bill, so we know what they want. This isn't a mystery. But on the Republican side, they can't even come to an agreement internally as to what they want. Over 20 Republicans right now in the Republican caucus don't want any bill at all. They don't want any additional spending. But Republicans want to continue to pick on Democrats on this, and yet they can't come to an agreement. Both sides are going back and forth. Listen to some of the fighting.
It seems like Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi are very content on allowing things to expire and try to use them for leverage to extract other Democrat wish list items.
The Republicans don't even have a bill that the Senate Republican Conference uniformly supports. The president says it's semi-irrelevant. What is there to negotiate? They have put forth a fiction of a response.
A fiction of a response. Right now, Republicans are hunting for a backup plan because this first bill, this HEALS Act, appears to be dead on arrival, folks. All signs are pointing that way right now. Discussions come as Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows have met every day this week with House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer. But in their own words, they are nowhere close to a deal, and they are, quote, very far apart. And one of the biggest sticking points right now appears to be this, which is the liability protection. According to The Hill this morning and Washington Post, the liability shield fight is threatening to blow up these relief talks. But that's honestly not the only sticking point. This is one big sticking point right now. And of course, Republicans want liability protection in the bill. That liability protection would have a moratorium for you to be able to sue a business if you got sick by going back to work or going into a business to buy something. If you found out that you were compromised because of COVID, thanks to that business not having the proper screening techniques or whatever, you wouldn't be able to sue them out of existence. Now, I agree with that in theory. This idea that you're going to be able to pinpoint how exactly you got sick, and then you're going to, America is already the worst country in the world for suing people. It's awful. And we do not need trial lawyers making any more money off of our sue-happy society in the United States. Democrats have long supported trial lawyers. They've been a big lobby of Democrats. Republicans have always gone against trial lawyers and always tried to get them, crush trial lawyers. So we see where this is shaping up, right? These two battles here between trial lawyers and Republicans. So I agree with this idea that we shouldn't have people being sued all the time and out of business because someone says they got COVID from walking into their pet store. How do you know? How do you know? Now, in the case of like these meat packing plants and others where we know that certain precautions weren't taken and all of these people got sick at a meat packing plant, Democrats say that's why we have this OSHA provision in our bill, which makes it a requirement for those businesses to follow certain procedures to make sure that their workers, customers, and employers are protected. They think that their bill goes far enough. They don't want an additional level of liability protection in there that would prevent people from suing a business. Now imagine you get called back to work. Now I see their point on this, right? Imagine you get called back to work, but you don't think that that business has done enough to protect you. Like, okay, I'll go back to work because I have to feed my family, but boy, they didn't do anything to make sure that I'm safe. And then you get sick after going back to work. You social distance, you stayed at home in quarantine for 3.5 months, you go back to work and you get sick. And you have then no recourse. Now you're just up a creek. So Democrats want that OSHA provision to be enough to cover it. Republicans don't. Democrats are saying this isn't even a starting point. Like if you don't remove this thing, we're not even going to negotiate with you on this. They have no plans to budge on liability protection. But there are other areas they have total disagreement on as well. Education funding, state and local funding, and rental assistance. All these people this weekend are about to lose their eviction moratorium and they're about to lose their unemployment benefits. And so Republican response to this has been kind of terrible. It's not in their bill at all. There's no rental assistance in that bill at all. And Mitch McConnell was asked about this last night. It was a really good interview with Judy Woodruff on the NewsHour. Take a listen to how Mitch responded to Judy Woodruff's questions about rental assistance and some of the provisions where there's just nothing in there in the Republican side of this bill.
A question about housing. Democrats would ban evictions, continue to ban evictions. Are you prepared, as early as this next week and coming weeks, to see people thrown out of their house or apartment because they can't afford to make rent or mortgage payment?
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of thing we ought to be talking about with the Democrats to try to get to a solution.
I think that's one of the things we should be talking about and try to work with Democrats to get a solution. Okay, well then why didn't you put it in your bill? If you're that's one of the things we should be talking about. We should come up with a solution. Why is that not in your bill to begin with? So you have zero in there for housing assistance. Zero.
Mr. Majority Leader, Democrats are asking for $1 trillion almost in aid to pay these frontline workers, people who are out there working because they have to, despite the coronavirus. The Republican bill, nothing in there for these state and local government workers. Why not?
Judy, as you know, every state budget has two really big items, education and Medicaid. Our proposal puts more money in for education than the Democratic proposal.
The money that had been set aside, they're going to change that provision to allow states to use it how they want. Again, it's still nowhere near the price tag that Democrats want. You have Republican states and Democratic states that have just been bleeding money and have no revenue. And they've had to furlough all kinds of state employees, including those that will have to deal with state unemployment offices to deal with the unemployment piece of this. Democrats are also not backing down on the amount of that unemployment benefit. They're sticking strong at $600 per week. Republicans are, going back and forth over this, around $200 per week. At this point, if you listen to this, they're looking for a plan B. So Republican Senator John Thune said, like right now, we can't get one large agreement. We're going to have to look for a plan B. And there is word that it might end up being like some sort of skinnier, watered down version that they can pass on the Senate side, because there's 20 Republicans that don't want anything passed. So might they go for something that's much smaller? Mitch McConnell had said that he would take that FBI building out of the bill. There's also military funding for new aircraft, new jets. We already have a $900 billion per year defense budget. It's a bloated piece of garbage. Why in the world are the military getting jet aircraft as part of this stimulus package? FBI building. Cannabis study money from the Democrats. Money's for illegal immigrants. Get this crap out of these bills. So Mitch McConnell said in a statement yesterday that he would remove this FBI building. That'll be a slap to the White House. We understand that why President Trump wanted that FBI building there. It'd be a catty-corner to his Trump hotel. And that location then wouldn't be off the table for like a Marriott to come in and be competitive. So this would enable them to have a separate location. So that would be less competition for the Trump hotel. It appears that there's at least some agreement at $1,200 on that part, and still no agreement necessarily on the dependency part. $1,200 is what Democrats want for dependents. Republicans want $500. But there doesn't appear to be any consensus on this at all. So Republicans right now at this hour are starting to look for a plan B. And you hear Mitch McConnell say that he wants to get something done by Friday if he could. He's hoping. He's like, we typically, things happen at the last minute here in Congress. He's hoping that they can come to some sort of an agreement by Friday as these unemployment benefits are done and as mortgage evictions and moratoriums eviction moratoriums wind down this weekend. It's going to be a disaster. Of course, they leave for another break on Friday, August 7th, right? They start a 5-week break on August 7th. I don't know how they're going to get this done before then. That's their summer vacation, even though they already had like 2 summer vacations. We should all be calling our members of Congress and demanding that they stay in town. Nancy Pelosi, for her part, has said that they will not leave, that they are planning to stay in Washington. They are not going home until this is done. We have not heard the same thing on the Republican side yet. Nancy Pelosi was asked about what she thinks of the Republican bill last night, and she said, I just don't get it.
All of the services that people need that are provided by state and local, they've said zero. Zero. It can't be. It can't be. And by the way, it's much less than they spent to give tax cuts to the top 1% in our country. 83% of the benefits going to the top 1%. Now all of a sudden, it's the money. In addition to that, we have the testing, which I described, and then put money in the pockets of the American people. Well, they have a disdain or sort of a condescension toward working people, it seems, because they don't trust how they might use the $600, that kind of thing. They have money to pay the rent, they're just not paying the rent.
Disdain for the American people, and they're quibbling over $600 and how Americans would spend that $600. Look, I agree with her on this point. I don't agree with everything that she says at all, but I think that this is an important point. They've sent trillions of dollars, billions of dollars out to big companies. And we found out that a lot of these companies spent, there was a story yesterday about the guy who bought a Lamborghini with his PPP money. I mean, come on. There's been so much mismanagement on the business side of this stimulus, lack of audits, these big companies like Shake Shack and others going on and on. They've got money and bailout money, but we're quibbling over how someone uses $600 a week because God forbid we help out just the average American, right? It's helping people out right now get through this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below. And I'd also love for you to subscribe to the channel. If you're not already a subscriber, please do so. We bring you these stories every day live at 9 a.m. Eastern time and try to bring the news that I think you could use to your inbox first thing in the morning. If you sign up for our newsletter, it's our Morning Invest daily newsletter. It's totally free. Just put in your email and you'll get the nice summary of the news of the day and help you read it in about 5 minutes every morning. It'll make you smarter, I think. That's the goal anyway. You can read it over your cup of coffee. You'll get an immediate alert once you sign up. You'll get a welcome email. It'll be sent right to your inbox or your spam folder. If it goes there by accident, please just drag it over to your inbox. That way you won't miss another update. So we appreciate that. And how's Grover doing? Where is Grover? Leave the camera. Here's Grover. What's he doing? Hey, buddy. You want to bury your head in that after that news? I hear you. Stick your tongue out at that news.